Has this ever happened to you? Well, I would say if you're using a 1/2-inch impact to run down 10mm fasteners, it probably happens to you quite often. All kidding aside, this episode of Eric the Car Guy is all about removing broken fasteners from pretty much whatever. Let's face it, if you do this, you're gonna break something somewhere, especially if you live in the Rust Belt areas such as where I'm at. So you will run into broken fasteners. So I want to show you a couple of methods that I employ when I run into this issue. I'm sure there are many different ways of dealing with it. Please feel free to share your methods in the comments. But I'm going to show you some of the things that I do when I deal with broken fasteners that may help you should you find yourself in that situation. Here we have our broken fastener. This one's broken down way down in here. So I may not be able to employ my first preferred method, which is to use a punch and a hammer. And what I try to do is I try to get in here and just sort of catch a little bit of the top of this, and then I'll start hitting in this direction. This sometimes works, and it's usually the impacting motion. Now, let's face it, this isn't going to happen under these quote-unquote ideal situations like this all the time. In fact, the threads are probably rusted up, or there might be some other issue down in there. But I usually give this a try, just because if it works, man, it works awesome. So just a regular old hammer and a regular old punch. I've also used an air hammer for this, which is extremely effective. But you have to be careful with this aluminum because there's a real good chance that you'll booger up the rest of the threads, and you also have to be careful now. But I start by hammering straight in, and then I angle the punch to try to turn the fastener, or what's left of the fastener, in a counterclockwise direction. And if there's a little tab or some part of it that's sticking up, I try to use that. So I try to use whatever existing resources I'm given. Of course, you don't want to take this too far, because when you mushroom mount the top of this, you're pretty much going to wedge it into the threads. So if it doesn't work within the first few tries, you pretty much have to give it up. I'm going to pretty much give up the ghost at this point. Main reason being is this is so far down in here, as I'm hitting this, I'm actually hurting the threads. So that's one thing you want to be careful of. I mean, really, each one of these things is going to be an individual situation, because here I'm out on the bench, it's super easy to get to everything, but most likely the bolt you're going to break is going to be in a very difficult to reach spot, and you may be debating whether or not you need it. I've been there, done that. I completely understand. The rule is if it doesn't leak, well, you win. To a certain extent. It really depends on the application and the situation, but I'll leave that for you to decide. However, if you are able to get to the broken fastener without removing the engine or transmission or whatever is broken, I recommend starting with that, so the hole punch. The next thing I'm going to employ here is I'm going to start drilling out the fastener, and then I'm going to re-tap this hole. This is sometimes painstakingly slow. I highly recommend a good set of drill bits here. I can't stress that enough, because so much of this is really going to be dependent upon your tools. And if this is in a hard to reach place, there are drills available that have heads that are mounted at 90 degrees. So instead of having a drill straight down like this, you have a drill that can come in this fashion, which is extremely helpful in hard to reach areas. You may have to beg, borrow, or steal one of those things in order to get it, but I think you get the idea. So I'm going to go get a set of drill bits, and we'll go to work on this fastener in a different way. What I have here is a tap and die set. It has both standard and metric taps and dies. You will need something of this nature in order to get your fastener out. So you're going to have to know what your thread pitch and everything is, and that is done normally with a thread pitch gauge. I believe the actual fastener that was broken off inside of our block here is an 8x125. Okay, here we have our fastener. Then you take the gauge, 125mm, you insert it onto the threads, and I'm wrong. So the actual size of this fastener, I mean, the heads of fasteners are actually a different size than what the fastener is listed at. The size of this fastener is actually the threaded part, which is 6 millimeter. I do know that for a fact. You can measure that, but the thread pitch is 1. So this is 6 millimeter by 1 is what we'll have to deal with here in the end. You can see, hopefully you can see, how those threads fit down there nicely. And I originally thought it was a 125. Now here's a 1.5. It will also serve our purposes. This is a more coarse thread. Coarse means the teeth are spaced farther apart. Fine means they're spaced closer together. But you can see how this one doesn't match up. I have one for the standard size here as well. This is a pretty handy kit that I got. I'll put links in the description to all the tools that I'm using, and they may not be exactly what you see here in the video, but I'll find something comparable for you. Here's another like sort of cheater's way to tell your thread pitch. I just take the tap that I'm going to use and sort of lay it up against the threads of the fastener, and if they fit in, I know they're the same. Yeah, there's a 1-0. So this is my 6x1. I've done this just as sort of a shortcut rather than flipping through all that. I figure I'm going to be trying to find a tap to begin with. As far as figuring out the size of the actual fastener, yeah, that's the only thing I could think is maybe use a micrometer or something like that you can use to measure this. But this is the tap that I'm eventually going to need in order to get in there, and this is the way they're used. You can sort of see this threaded portion here sort of slips in there. It's that square drive. Voila. They also have a special set of sockets that can drive taps as well, but I don't have one of those. So I'm just going to be using this because we have such easy accessibility. You didn't think I was going to break a bolt that was hard to get to, did you? All right, now that we know what tap we're going to use, a couple of other things we're going to need. You can see I have a stack of drill bits here. Why do I have a stack of drill bits here? Well, because they get broken. And you always start with the smallest size when you're doing this work. So you start with a small and you work your way larger. You don't want to start with the biggest size possible because that could just invite disaster. You want to do this in increments. You're going to need patience in order to deal with this. So if it happened and it made you upset, you're probably best to go away, have yourself a mental cigarette, and just chill for a bit. Then come back to this with a fresh head. I'm telling you, you don't want to go at this like super fast because you'll mess it up and make things even worse. That's what you have. You have the potential to make life worse here, so try not to do that. Next, I have the center punch. And what this does is it helps you guide your drill bit when you first start. So when you first start to drill, sometimes what will happen, the drill bit's spinning. It might start to walk around as you're trying to drill. What this is designed to do, it's designed to create an indentation so that you get to start your drill bit where you want to start it. It's very good at this. It's spring loaded. You just push down and it comes out and with a lot of force and makes an indentation that you can use to start your drilling. As I said, I'm going to start with this center punch, and ideally I want to get this as close to the center as possible. If I'm off a little bit this way or a little bit this way, as I drill larger and larger, I will come in contact with these threads, and that will make the hole sort of oblong. And if that happens, it's going to be very difficult to get a fastener to work in here when I'm all done. So getting it as close to the center as possible is your best advantage in the situation. So try whatever you can to make sure you get in the center. It may not be perfectly center, but it's as close as I can get. There's sort of, when things break, there's going to be little peaks and valleys like you see here. So you may be fighting, well, not necessarily a losing battle, but a difficult one for sure. All right, before I get started with my drilling, know that I'm wearing my safety glasses. Another thing to note is that I have my oil can here. Now it has transmission fluid in it just because I had transmission fluid. That's not a big deal. Just regular motor oil or whatever will work just fine for this. It just so happens I had this filled with transmission fluid. Everybody always asks me why, what's in this? Why is it red? It's just transmission fluid. You want to have this because you don't want to overheat your drill bits. If you just go balls out just trying to drill this through, that's going to heat up your drill bit and eventually it will get dull and you'll need a pile of drill bits such as what I have. But in order to prevent that is periodically you want to add a little bit of oil to help cool the bit and keep your cut going. And just one more thing, when you drill as straight as possible. Any angles off to one side or another will also cause issues. And in those hard to reach places, like I mentioned earlier, you're really working. I'm right in my center punch here, and I'm just going to start to drill slowly. Not a lot of pressure on these small bits, you'll break them. Once again, there's a reason I have a lot of bits. In fact, I'm going to slow it down. This first cut's going to take the longest. That's okay. You get this first one right, you're pretty much home free. I don't seem to be making a whole lot of progress here. I just seem to be annoying it. My drill bits are old. This isn't making a whole lot of progress. I'm going to try a slightly larger bit that hopefully is not burned up, because that's what happens. The drill bits get dull. You can sharpen them. There are tools to sharpen drill bits, but your tools here with this work are going to make all the difference. I can't stress that enough of how quality tools are going to be your best friend here. Makes me wonder if I've got the drill in reverse. You do this a couple of times. A lot of you are like, Eric, how come you're not torquing fasteners? Well, you know what? You do this enough times, and you know to be lighter on the trigger of your air tools. I'll tell you that. Well, that looks like it took hold, but it also looks like it went sideways a little bit. All of my small drill bits are broken or dull. I guess we'll have to work on that. I'm just trying to get through it. Once I'm through it, I just start adding bigger bits, and then we just sort of take it from there, but I need to get through it first. Something interesting is happening. The whole fastener is spinning and going deeper in the hole. This tells me that actually I should be able to spin it out. I don't think that's going to happen today because we are demonstrating something. But it's interesting how, like, all of a sudden I just felt the drill bit grab and it just went deeper in the hole. I think that went all the way through. Here's where we are. Got it pretty much in the center, and it's not all the way to the threads yet, as you can see. So I'm going to continue on, this time with a larger bit. You can see how I'm just a little bit off center. Hopefully it won't be so much that it's going to be a real problem, but I think you get the idea. Now that we've got our initial hole, the drilling should go a lot easier. And we want to drill till we're just about on the inside of the threads. We don't want to drill the hole larger necessarily. We want to see if we can get the hole the same size as those threads, or darn close to it. Okay, I'm going up 2 bit sizes, and what you'll find when you already have a hole drilled is that the drill might catch or want to walk on you, so don't put a lot of pressure on it to start with. Let it sort of bite the top of the hole first, and then you can work your way down in. Once again, try to get it as straight as possible. I think we're through. You can see it goes a lot quicker after you get that initial hole drilled. Okay, there's our progress. That's where we are now. Maybe one more drill bit up, maybe 2 more sizes up. We'll see where we're at. Watch as Eric the Car Guy drills holes in metal. So here's a tough call, because I'm really close. Really close. I'm so close I'm about to start tagging threads there. I still feel like I want to go just a little bit bigger. I'm going to see what a larger drill bit feels like in there, but if it's too confined, I'm going to scrap that and just take the same drill bit I just used and sort of move the drill around like this a little bit to sort of make the hole a little bigger. Drills are cutting tools. They cut holes. Think of them that way. This is the next drill bit up. Feels close. This might be my last one here. Now what's happening here is probably the remnants of the metal that are left have sort of bound my drill bit up in the hole. I'm just going to keep working it back and forth till I can get it out. There's just a little bit of metal left. I still might want to go one size larger, because the last thing you want to do is break a tap off inside of a hole. Taps are made of hardened metal. So hard, in fact, the only thing that gets them out is a diamond tip drill bit. Machine shops are usually the only ones that have those. So if you end up breaking a tap off inside a hole, give up. You're never going to find a drill bit that's going to drill through it unless you got diamond tip drill bits. Don't break a tap off inside of something. It was one of the first things I did as a mechanic in school, and I will never forget the lesson. Now you might be able to see in there how the fastener is sort of broken loose from the inside of that hole, which is what we wanted. So there's so little of it left that it's just hanging on by a thread. So I think I'm going to go for the tap now, and I'm going to be very careful running it down in there, because like I said, if you bind the tap up inside the hole and break the tap, it's game over. Off to the machine shop with you. Same thing with taps as drill bits. A little bit of oil helps them last a heck of a lot longer. And simply you just insert the tap and let the tap find the threads if you can. Try not to push down on it. Just sort of let it find the threads. You'll know when it catches, and when it does, that's when you can start to give it the beans. And you see how it just caught there, and it knows where to go. And when you do this, go down a little bit, bring it back up. Go down a little bit, bring it back up. That will also keep the tap from breaking. These slots in the side here are for, it's a place for all the garbage to go into. So I'll do this a couple of times, remove it, take out some of the garbage, and put it back down in. In fact, I think I'll do that now. It feels a little wobbly, a little loose, but it also feels like it's gonna hold. See what I mean about it holds the garbage inside of there? That's sort of what those are. They help bring their stuff out. So I'm gonna clean this off with some compressed air. Yes, I know I'm blowing it into the block, but this is for your benefit. This block is junk. It's a boat anchor. Well, not even that. It's not heavy enough for that, but More junk for you. You got to be careful with aluminum. It's soft. You do this too much or too hard, you won't have anything left, and you'll have to go bigger. So if this fails, you got to make the hole bigger and go up to the next size tap and tap the hole larger and find a fastener for that. So if you totally botch this, drill the hole out larger, tap the threads to a larger diameter, and hopefully call it a day. Not bad. I'd call that one a success. Now I'm going to run a fastener down in there just to see how it fits. Okay, the moment of truth. I have a new fastener here that I'm going to run down in. I think it's a bit long, but we'll see. It's a little wobbly going in, I'll be honest. That's normal. I mean, it'll still hold, but you really don't want to like really torque on this once you're done with the repair. Let's see, it gets better the further down it gets. You really don't want to put a great deal of torque. I mean, just enough to hold whatever it is you're trying to hold in place, but be careful of that because the threads themselves have been worked over pretty good, let's say. I'm going to use the proper tool this time to tighten this down, which is this 1/4 inch is what I'd recommend you use on these fasteners. And I think that's about as far down as it's going to get. But we're there, it's tight, it's going to hold. Those of you that wonder what it's like in a not broken hole, see this one's got a little bit of wiggle, not nearly as much as our repaired one there, but it also goes down about the same amount, so I'm pretty happy, or at least it seems to. Yeah, that's about as far as it's going to go. All right, well, there's 2 methods for you on how to deal with this. Let's wrap this up and I'll talk about a couple of other things you can do. All right, these are not your only options, but they're the most common ones and they involve the most common tools that people have. You may have to track down a tap. Like I said, you may need a micrometer to find out what the actual size of that fastener is. Well, also they have gauges. You don't necessarily need a micrometer. They actually have bolt gauges and it tells you what size that fastener is, so you can use those. I'll post a link in the description to all those tools, including the ones I used in the video and that I'm mentioning now. Then there's drilling and tapping. Like I said, my preferred method is to see if I can catch it with a center punch and start to get it to spin out. That is the quickest method. However, as I said, if you take it too far, you can mushroom out the fastener and then it's wedged in there good, and then you got to go and do what we did anyway. Which I was going to do no matter what. Even if I was able to spin that fastener out, I was going to break another one and show you the drilling and tapping method. Now, there are special tools available out there. A couple that come to mind are easy outs, I'm sure you've heard of. And easy outs are tools with these, you can see these ends up here, it sort of looks like a drill bit, but it's not. These are sort of designed to grip. These come in a lot of different styles. This is one that I use to get out antenna masts that were broken off down inside their holes. But a lot of them are longer and come to a point rather than just being a specific size like this one. Easy outs come in many different configurations, but they all do basically the same thing. The idea behind the easy out is similar to what I showed here beyond the tap. What you would do with an easy out is you would keep drilling the hole until you got to a point, not touching the threads, but just to a point to where you could insert an easy out down into the hole. At that point, you insert the easy out in, and it's designed to where when you turn it backwards, these dig in to the side of the broken fastener and help draw it back out as if it wasn't broken. So easy outs are another option. Something else that I've seen in the past is a set of drill bits with sort of easy out attachments. They're left-handed drill bits. So in other words, you run them in backwards to start with. And similar to what happened to me during this job where it actually caught the fastener and started spinning it. Well, what they're designed to do is after they drill the hole down to a certain point, the drill bit's designed to grab onto the fastener and spin it out. So it's like a quick drill it, grab it, and it comes back out. I've seen those, I've never used them. I don't know how they work. However, I have used easy outs. and I have broken an easy out inside of a hole before. Same thing as breaking off a tap. Either one is a trip to the machine shop, unless you have, like I said, those kryptonic drill bits, whatever you want to call them. They're diamond chip drill bits. It's not like they've got a diamond on the end of them. They've got like little crushed diamonds on the ends of the bit themselves. They're extremely expensive, and it's usually machine shops that have those types of things. So that's your final solution if you break an easy out or a tap off inside whatever hole you've got. That is quite honestly worst case scenario. The thing you're going to run into most with all this, you may not have all the room that I had here today. I was doing this on the bench. It was real easy to get to. If you can get to that point where if the part is difficult to access inside the vehicle, remove that part. It may be a cylinder head or whatever you need to remove, or manifold or what have you, in order to get access to that fastener, but that may be your only hope. I hate to say it, but sometimes you run into that, and those are the days that you wish you were doing something else for a living. And lastly, what I'll say is vice grips. If there's enough fastener that's still sticking up, if you're fortunate enough to have some fastener still sticking up, then yes, employ some vice grips. And also, let's not forget our handy friend, the torch. If you do have a little bit of fastener that's still sticking up, it might be time to grab a torch. People have asked me about using propane. I'm going to say propane's just not going to get a fastener hot enough in order to remove it from something. MAP gas, maybe. Definitely oxyacetylene. I know not everybody has this, but they don't call it the big red wrench for nothing. Now, heating aluminum, really super tricky, because the thing about aluminum is it conducts heat to the point where it'll conduct heat to the point where it melts. And it'll melt on you. It's not like cast iron. Cast iron you can heat up, don't worry about it. But with aluminum, you got to be wicked careful, because that stuff will melt faster than you can say, oh. So be careful with that. But if you do have enough of the fastener still sticking up, grab a pair of vice grips. These are actually my favorite ones, these little ones. Grab a pair of vice grips, see if you can grab hold of the fastener, maybe heat it up a little bit and spin it out that way. Anything you can do to preserve whatever's left of that fastener is going to be the best case scenario. There's less work to do. And as you saw after I got done drilling and tapping here, the fastener was a little bit loose sitting down inside that bore, and that's just going to happen. If you're drilling down in there, you're making the hole ever so slightly larger, and I'll admit, the fastener's not going to hold as good as it did before there was a broken fastener in there. It's just kind of how it is. So there are many different methods you can employ. I will post links in the description to everything that I can possibly think of here to give you as much information that I can give you, and hopefully you'll be able to solve whatever issue it is, or hopefully you'll be able to get out whatever you broke. I'm sending the car gods your way. Anyway, I am Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me at EricTheCarGuy.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Isn't that awesome? Over at EricTheCarGuy.com, where if you have automotive issues, I'd ask that you head over there. As I just said, there's a welcome video that lets you know all the things we have at EricTheCarGuy.com there to help you with those automotive issues, should you have them. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, and stay dirty. And try not to break stuff. It kind of sucks.